Happy birthday, Satoshi Nakamoto. I'm joined by my colleague, CoinDesk reporter Tom Carreras on this very special day. For those who don't know, the pseudonymous creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, claimed their birthday was April 5th, 1975, when registering a username with the P2P Foundation. That would make it a big milestone for a fake birthday, the big 50. Satoshi also claimed he lived in Japan, but that's also likely untrue. We have no idea really. But there is a man who tried to uncover this mystery in a book called The Mysterious Mr. Nakamoto. That man is author Benjamin Wallace, and he joins us now. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so for context, Ben, you were the first mainstream journalist to attempt to unmask Satoshi Nakamoto back in 2011 for Wired. And back then, you didn't have an answer with this book, you're not even any closer to finding the real identity of Satoshi Nakamoto, but it seems a really desperate task because not only so many have tried and failed, but because the Bitcoin community advises against it and Satoshi doesn't want to be found. So why attempt it in the first place?
So I don't think until you know who Satoshi is, you can't really assess whether or not it's important to know who Satoshi is, right? I mean, if you assume that Satoshi is just some like average Joe who wants his privacy, then sure, like let's give him his privacy. But what if Satoshi is not an average Joe? What if Satoshi is like an adversarial intelligence agency? What if Satoshi is a, malevolent genius with an island lair? I mean, we just don't know. So I think, if you're just interested in knowledge and truth, you have to try to find that out. And at that point, you can make the decision whether or not it's important or unimportant or dangerous or et cetera, to reveal who that is.
I understand that. Fair point. Tom, you read the book, and I've only read excerpts up to now. Tom, what were your thoughts and your top questions after reading it?
I thought it was a great book. I think that crypto people, the Bitcoin community, they tend to be very wary of Nakamoto like investigations because sometimes, it can feel like you've got like an outsider coming in saying like, oh, these idiots, they have no idea who even created Bitcoin. Like, I will figure it out in 2 hours. And the Benjamin's book is not like that at all. Like, it's very thoughtful. He considered the question very seriously. He's never condescending towards the crypto community or the Bitcoin community. Even though he disagrees with him on sort of like, I guess he disagrees with the majority who say, let's keep Nakamoto secret. He's got a different take, but it's never patronizing, which is really good. At the very beginning of the book, he says, he started this investigation. He renewed his investigation because he kept getting emails that Elon Musk was Nakamoto. And like, I was like, oh no, like, I thought he was going to investigate that, which, from my perspective doesn't seem very realistic at all. But actually, like after like an initial moment that was my last moment of dread, because afterwards, the whole sort of investigation is very well put together, I thought. And it's also a really fun read that beyond sort of Nakamoto's identity. It's a really fun read for anyone who wants to sort of understand the context in which Bitcoin was created, not just sort of, political and social. Everyone sort of knows about like the Genesis block and like the Chancellor message and everything. But what about the cypherpunk sort of scene in which these ideas were birthed first? Even if Nakamoto was the one who put everything together, all of the ideas that are present in Bitcoin were floating around for some time, and Benjamin really, in his investigation, he really shows that. So it's really a cool work if you want to sort of get to know Bitcoin's origins better, even without and the Nakamoto stuff is to me was less interesting than that side, like all the context that he brings to it.
Thank you. Can I say also, just not to give myself too much credit, when I first looked at this in 2011, like I also was like an idiot coming in thinking I was going to solve this in 2 hours, and clearly did not succeed. And then I also had the benefit of watching over the next, decade plus of other people's efforts and sort of seeing what the traps were and the kind of the ways you could go wrong in this search. And so at a minimum, I hoped to make different mistakes rather than the same ones.
I definitely think you succeeded, and it's kind of interesting. It is interesting to see you reflect on these other investigations as well, because you talk about the Dorian Nakamoto scandal and like stuff like that, and it's great to see your perspective on how all this sort of had an impact. And the thing to say, like, in defense of your Wired piece, if you went and you did interview everyone back in 2011 already. Like, yep. You talked with Hal Finney, you talked with Nick, and you tried to reach out to all the people that you suspected of being Nakamoto. I think even though it sounds from the book that you didn't necessarily pay attention too much to like Bitcoin after 2011 until like roughly 2020, 2021. I think you do bring a lot of perspective to this. That, for example, I got into crypto like in 2020. Like you have a perspective on this that I'm never going to be able to have, even if I work in it every single day. So one of the questions I had was sort of, how do you what's your sense of how maybe the Bitcoin mentality has changed since those early days? Some of the people that you talked to in 2011, like, are you surprised to see what they're doing now, or do you feel like there's like an easy continuation between now and before? Like, what was sort of like your perspective when you dove back into the crypto scene in 2021?
Well, I don't remember at that time encountering people who sort of came out of the cypherpunk background or were people who you would think would be in favor of Bitcoin who were against it, right? Whereas now, and for many years now, there have been a bunch of people who early on were idealistic about it, enthusiastic about it, who become disillusioned with it. And, a number of whom have sort of dropped out of the scene entirely. I mean, some of the early, core devs, whether it's Gavin Andreessen or Mike Hearn, people like that, who just sort of have gone away. And then even people like, Phil Zimmerman, who created PGP and was a hero to the cypherpunks. Even Tim May before his death, who was one of the creators of the cypherpunks, were kind of turned off from Bitcoin for different reasons, actually. I mean, opposite reasons. Like Phil Zimmerman thought it was, a cesspool of criminality, and Tim May thought it was sort of too, was almost not criminal enough. Like it was not privacy preserving enough, or useful for evading taxes.
Right. So towards the end of your book, you sort of settle on the idea that Hal Finney deserves, like, it's kind of funny because we watch you sort of going through this list of names and you end up coming back sort of to Hal, which was one of your first suspects in 2011. You're sort of saying, he's one of the only people that the people around him definitely think that he could have been part of it. But you sort of have this idea also that, there's still stuff that doesn't work with that theory. And so if it was Hal, then it must have been with other people. I don't know when you finished your draft, but like, is that still where your thinking is? Has it been easy for you to like be like, okay, you know what, this is more or less where my ideas are? Are you still continuously thinking about it?
I still think about it. And I have to say, like, one of the theories that's grown on me since I finished writing the book is the, sort of NSA potential. Because not because I have any affirmative evidence pointing to the NSA so much as through process of elimination, and that it explains a lot of things, or it would explain a lot of things. It would explain why none of the people who, kind of come up as possibilities is a clean stylometry hit for Nakamoto. It would explain all of the kind of superhuman, if not inhuman behavior, like not taking credit, not cashing in. And, there are two theories why an intelligence agency might do it, and neither of which is entirely persuasive to me. I mean, one is the idea that they would have done it as a honeypot, sort of, akin to the way the FBI set up this whole infrastructure of encrypted cell phones that they then used, that was adopted by organized crime, and they busted like 800 people, criminals who were unwittingly using the FBI's cell phone system. So that would be one theory. And then the other one is that they were trying to create some sort of borderless, relatively untraceable transfer system to pay people in like totalitarian countries, assets. But, both of those seem a little bit of a stretch, but I do think that the idea that Satoshi could be someone who really hasn't left an internet footprint, could point to that possibility. And also the maintenance of the secret, because the only type of person or organization that actually has a track record of being able to keep secrets, even among groups, are intelligence agencies, right?
But I find the idea of the NSA is really cool. I sort of get what you mean in your book. You're like, hey, like everyone thinks Nakamoto is like this angel. He comes in, he creates Bitcoin, launches Bitcoin, and then he disappears. And it's just such a clean narrative. I enjoy the NSA idea because it is a different take. I also enjoyed the sort of theory that Paul Leroux could be like the could have created it just for money laundering purposes or stuff like that. Who would you want? Do you have a favorite Nakamoto? Like, who would you want it to be?
I mean, the poetic Satoshi would be Hal Finney, right? Because Hal Finney was more likable than many of the other candidates, just as a person, and has potentially the poetic, reason of I find the possibility that Bitcoin was created as a way to send money into the future for extropians who wanted to be cryonically frozen, kind of poetic and fascinating and really kind of interesting. So I think for those two reasons, he would be my choice, and he'd been working at it for so long, so it would be kind of this well-deserved triumph, especially for a guy who, tragically died, sort of an early death.
I was wondering if you could weigh into some of the new theories that we've heard lately, notably from the HBO documentary Money Electric, where Peter Todd, a Bitcoin Core contributor, was suggested as being Satoshi also. And there is someone who is very adamant that Jack Dorsey, the creator of Twitter as well as the block, is Satoshi Nakamoto. Just want to hear you weigh your thoughts on those theories.
Sure. So, I mean, I give Colin Hoback, the director of the HBO documentary, credit for really a very interesting find, like in the sort of, in the archives of the Bitcoin forum, right? He found a place where Peter Todd sort of logged in his first post on the forum, where he seemed to be responding or actually continuing a Satoshi post. And so the theory is that he had accidentally logged in under his real identity that one time. And so I think it was a very interesting find and certainly worth investigating and putting Todd in the roster of people you're looking at. After the HBO documentary came out, there was, or simultaneous with it, the New Yorker did an article about that documentary, and the reporter, Gideon Lewis Krauss, asked Hoback, why didn't you do stylometry on Peter Todd? And he said, well, I want to leave that to others to do. But I think you have to try. You have to try to falsify your candidate, right? You have to do everything you can to corroborate or not corroborate them. And so I thought that was a gap in the documentary. And so I sent a bunch of Peter Todd's prose to this team of French stylometrists I've been working with, and who had themselves sort of done a pretty interesting study on Q and determined exactly, when one of the two people who were Q took over from the other. And they found Todd's prose not to be convincingly that of Satoshi. And I also sent samples of Peter Todd's code from programs he'd written to a different person, a machine learning expert I've been working with to do code stylometry. And he also found Todd not to be a match to Satoshi's code. So I don't find him very persuasive. Jack Dorsey, I think it's an intriguing theory. But it's only that, and a lot of the coincidences that the person who has pushed that theory has come up with do seem like numerology. It's like his mother's birthday is also the date that Dorsey's mother's birthday is the date that Satoshi did this other thing. It seems quite far-fetched to me. But I mean, I like the idea. I've always thought, one possible reason Satoshi wouldn't touch the coins is what if Satoshi was already fantastically wealthy? And Dorsey certainly fits that category.
Mm-hmm. And in your book, and in the New York Magazine, I read an excerpt where you thought James A. Donald might be Satoshi, and that's a name I'd never heard before. So maybe you could walk us through that theory and like what ultimately made you decide he was not Satoshi.
So James A. Donald was one of the cypherpunks. He was one of the hardcore ones. He was talking about digital money in the 90s. And he was also saying stuff like, hey guys, let's destroy the state through higher mathematics. Like he was a kind of crypto anarchist, and he was the very first person to respond to Satoshi when Satoshi posted the white paper, or posted the at first just the summary of the white paper on the cryptography list on Halloween in 2008. The very first response was from James Donald. And it was slightly critical, and it was, I think, already identifying potential limitations with scaling. So it was prescient in that way. But he immediately got what Satoshi was trying to do, because he'd been part of the digital cash conversation for over a decade. So I first hit upon Donald. Well, so Donald was then once Bitcoin appeared and people started wondering who Satoshi might be. Donald was kind of an ethereal figure. Like people would say, is that his real name? Is he even alive? Is he Canadian? Like no one really knew anything about Donald. And when I started my kind of deep dive into this, or my second deep dive in 2021, 2022, I came upon a really freakish coincidence of language, which was that Satoshi used the word fensible, although he may have used the word non-fensible, but fensible in the sense of like able to be fenced, able to fence like stolen goods, right? And while we've all heard the word fence, like stolen goods, like fensible turns out to be a very rare form of that word. And I mean, really rare, like in 150 years of the New York Times, or, it's never appeared in that sense. In vast corpuses of words that linguists use to assess words' rarity, the word like never appeared. So really just a freakish word. And so when I scraped, decades of cypherpunk archives, extropian archives, all of these archives of groups that related to the ideas in Bitcoin, the word fensible was used one time, and it was by James Donald. So now you've got the guy who first responded to Satoshi. He's kind of a ghost. No one really knows much about him. And he used this one word. So that's really what got me onto him. The thing that eventually made me think he was not likely to be Satoshi is just personality. I mean, I know that sounds like a soft reason but Satoshi showed a normal range of human emotion. I mean, even though his style was pretty plain, like he would every now and then he'd express sympathy. He'd say, "Oh, that poor guy," or "Oh, um, uh, he could show enthusiasm. He'd use exclamation marks. Like he just was like a fairly normal person emotionally. And Donald is very unusual. He's very flat. He has become, I guess you could call him an edgelord. And he was always kind of an edgelord. But I mean, he has a blog in which he just spews like the most vile, material. That he's kind of a neo-reactionary, Curtis Yarvin adjacent guy. And you never see sympathy or empathy from him. You never see enthusiasm. It's just a very different personality.
I think it's worth mentioning that you actually flew over to Australia to go meet Donald, right? Like,
it's true.
And your conversation with him ended up being about maybe 2 or 3 minutes long. Like, can you tell us a bit about this and what you were thinking about on the plane and everything? Because you
made me
were
nervous
pretty...
just reading about it.
Yeah. I mean, I was a bit nervous because he again, his as an edgelord, he presents himself as quite a scary person, and he's always talking about like he owns guns and I'm a dangerous person and things like this. And a fair amount of his rhetoric is quite hateful. And so I had emailed him, and he had, to my surprise, responded, which right away might make it unlikely he's Satoshi. Like, would Satoshi respond to me? I don't know. And but then he went dark on me, and I, after I presented my theory about his similarities to Satoshi, and but he had, in one place on his blog, one time in responding to a comment, he said, "I know who Satoshi was, and I know what his motivations were." And none of the other cypherpunks has ever said anything like that. And so at a certain point, I decided I just have to like have a more, like, I need some interaction with this guy. I need to see his face. I need to try to ask him these questions that he's now not answering by email. And it took me a while to figure out where he was, because he intentionally keeps a very kind of low footprint. It turned out he lives in Australia. He actually is Australian, but had lived in Silicon Valley for many years, which again fit the Satoshi thing of like sometimes uses American English spellings, sometimes uses Commonwealth spellings. And he was a C++ coder. I mean, there were a bunch of technical ways in which he lined up with Satoshi. There were even some stylistic things in the code that lined up. But so I took I took 4 planes to get within an hour of where he lived. I just transfers. It took me and then I had to rent a car. So the whole trip was like 37 hours. And then I, arrive on his doorstep, and knocked on the door frame, and he came out, and we had a 3-minute conversation, and he was not unpleasant. And he was, at first I don't know, he was pretty calm, considering that he said he had not gotten my email, because before I went over to see him, I wanted to at least give him a heads up that I knew he was in Australia, so he wouldn't be completely freaked out that I was showing up on his doorstep. And he basically was just very cagey and said, I can't tell you what I know. I get in trouble if I say what I know. And I was like, well, maybe we can go get a drink. He's like, no, I tend to be indiscreet when I drink. To which I'm like, great, let's go get a drink. Like, so, and he said, I said, is that because you? Maybe I said, sorry, I'm just thinking in real time. Okay, I think I said, do you think it could be Hal Finney? And he said, I can't say what I know. And I said, is that because you are being discreet, or because you don't actually know and you just have a strong theory? And then he basically he kind of started mumbling. It was basically a useless conversation. I mean, it really did not yield anything of great value. But 37-hour trip, 3-minute conversation. What are you going to do?
It's really funny because it strikes me as like it's a bit of a microcosm of your work at the end, where like you took a big leap, like you quit your job to do this investigation, and at the end of the day, like you got a lot of information, just not the information you were looking for. But what I was curious about, like sort of what made you really, like it's a big thing, taking the leap, being obsessed about this, but like being like, I'm going to solve this mystery no one else has solved for a few years, I'm sure. And I found it. I was just thinking about how my fiance would react if I was doing this, and at what point does she start getting worried for my mental health and everything? Like, so how did how did it work out for you? Like to I guess, how did you make the decision to do it, to do this investigation the way you did it, and how did you know when to stop?
Well, there's the sort of the boring, just practical, fact of like I had a book to write. I mean, I got a book contract, right? So that enabled me to quit my job, and in some sense, I had a book deadline, so that enabled me to stop the research. That's the boring answer. I mean, the reason why I wanted to do it, and which led me to try to get a book contract and kept me going, is I was obsessed with it, right? I mean, I from 2011, when I first heard about it, I was completely fascinated and intrigued by it. And by 2021, when I, got this Elon Musk, this email over the transom, like insisting that Elon Musk was Satoshi, I thought sort of enough time had passed and enough attempts had been made that that at this point it was a book. Like up to that point, it was like a magazine story, but now it's like, this is just crazy that this mystery still exists, and that Bitcoin has become so huge and we still don't know who invented it. It was just kind of confounding. And I thought there were things that could be done that had not been done, that at least needed to be tried, whether it was code stylometry or prose stylometry, but on a much larger set of people than tended to be focused on.
When you say code stylometry, maybe you would just explain what that is to people who
Sure.
not be
What
familiar.
code stylometry or stylometry generally?
Both.
Okay. So stylometry, which really originated as prose stylometry, text stylometry, is using essentially statistical analysis to attribute authorship for a document where the authorship is unknown or uncertain. So this was done, in the 1960s with the Federalist Papers. Some of the Federalist Papers, it was like, was it Madison? Was it Hamilton? Was it? And these statisticians, essentially, they quantify, like, it could be words, like how many times does the word "the" appear in a text, or it could be characters, like, or character clusters, like two characters in sequence, or in three characters or four characters, that kind of thing. And surprisingly, at least to me, and sort of unintuitively, it works like quite well. Like, and it's not the stuff necessarily like the superficial weird word, even though that's what got me focused on James Donald, the weird word Fencible. Like, what's really effective are the not weird words. It's like the function words, like of and the and but and there's a host of other words that are considered function words, but these are words that you cannot consciously really modify. Like it's very hard to deliberately change how you use the word "the." So it's this unconscious thing. So it's hard to defeat in a conscious way if you're trying to avoid being kind of fingerprinted by your prose. And yet we all have like a very distinctive way of using these that you wouldn't think we do, but we do. And it shows up when these stylometrists, it's an academic specialty, when they use their tools, their machine learning tools, et cetera, to do this. And so that's been around I mean, at least since the 60s when the Federalist Papers were targeted, but it's been, used in many other contexts since. But code stylometry is much newer, and it started, I think, in 2015. There was a research paper by a bunch of computational linguists, and the Army partly funded the study, and they essentially tried to apply similar tools to source code. And it could range from stuff like, indentation, how people indent their code. But then there's also stuff which is more the code equivalent of function words, which is called like the abstract syntax tree, which again gets at something which is much harder to fake than like, oh, I indent 4 spaces instead of 5 spaces. The abstract syntax tree is much more like, how does the coder think? And like, do they, a function nested within a function nested within a function versus like this other person who only never goes deeper than like 2 functions of nesting, like that kind of thing. So, and again, it's like remarkably accurate. So these were the technologies that I was trying to bring to this Satoshi problem. And because it's beyond my, pay grade by a long shot, for both of those things, the text stylometry and the code stylometry, I, teamed up with professionals in the fields.
And not only did you team up, but you had the stylometry for the code and stylometry for the prose did not always match, right?
Right, and part of the issue is, if you're looking at a police lineup, for who stole the purse, who the purse snatcher is, you might say that person looks the most like the person who stole my purse, but they still might not be the person because the person who stole your purse just isn't in the lineup. So you're a little bit at the mercy of whose text is available, whose source code is available. So for source code in particular, there were a bunch of people I would have loved to have in the lineup who I just could not get source code for. But yeah, there were, the sort of the number one hit with code stylometry was Ben Laurie, who's a Google security engineer, open source guy. And the
Bitcoin critic.
And major Bitcoin critic, huge critic of proof of work. And the closest hits for stylometry, text stylometry, at least on the cryptography list, were Ray Dillinger, who, like Donald, was one of the very first people to interact with Nakamoto, and someone no one's ever heard of, like named Travis Haslock, who happened to be a regular contributor to the cryptography list, but was actually the closest hit for text stylometry.
So you mentioned some of this in the book, but like looking back, now that the book is done and shelved, like what were sort of the biggest surprises and challenges for you in terms of researching it? I know you put a lot of effort into, for example, learning how to code just so you can understand how coders think or stuff like that. Like, what were some of the best parts, the worst parts?
That was definitely one of the best parts. Like, I found it completely fascinating, and it definitely, I think, was helpful in just also appreciating what's the feat of creating Bitcoin, right? But also helping me to have conversations with the types of people I was trying to interview, to at least have some conversational fluency in their, vernacular. Even though it was only a 3-minute conversation on his porch, going to Australia was sort of fun. I didn't get to do too much sightseeing, but that was fun. It was interesting to go to Alcor in Arizona, where Hal Finney is preserved, the cryonics facility. That was just very interesting, and to walk through it with Max Moore, who was the co-founder of the Extropians, and have him kind of reminisce about the Extropians and talk about how cryonics work. And just as with, as both of you, like with reporting, one of the coolest things about being a reporter is just getting to talk to like really interesting people who you normally, might not encounter. And like so many of these people are brilliant. And, getting to talk to like Ralph Merkle, the co-creator of public key cryptography, was amazing. Interviewing Bram Cohen was very interesting. who created BitTorrent, or Phil Zimmerman, who created PGP, and just sort of getting to time travel back to the utopian early internet when the cypherpunks and the extropians were, came into being and sort of had their heyday, was really, I don't know, kind of intellectually stimulating.
And not only that, but you spend time, also investigating some of the people that you did not think were Nakamoto, but like Craig Wright, you spent
right. Yeah, that was interesting. Okay.
Yeah, you were very doubtful of Wright from the get-go, but you still dedicate like several chapters to him. I understand, a lot of stuff happened with him and he's a very colorful character, but like I was surprised by how much space you gave him in the book. And yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on sort of how Wright fits into like the whole investigation.
Sure. Well, in terms of the mystery, even though I was very skeptical of him from the beginning, I think he was important for a couple of reasons. One is that I thought he was sort of a way to write. I mean, one of the main things I was trying to do with this book was to use the sort of tools of storytelling to convey arcane, complex, inapproachable, formidable information. And Bitcoin, I think, is very hard for normies to, really get their heads around. And it was hard for me to get my head around. And so things like, big topics in Bitcoin, like the scaling debate, is just like completely uninteresting to people outside of Bitcoin. But I thought like writing about Craig Wright and the controversy around him was a sort of human, dramatic way to write about the whole scaling conversation, because that's sort of what BSV's big appeal was. I also thought Craig Wright was interesting in that, in sort of reckoning with like why he almost certainly was not Satoshi, it was a way to establish kind of how high the bar really is to prove that you're a Satoshi, or even be a plausible or convincing Satoshi candidate. And he was never any of those things. I mean, to me, it was very interesting, or just kind of confounding how people could continue to believe him, as long as they did. I mean, the fact that there continued to be this, granted, small but very zealous cult around him was just completely inexplicable to me, when it was so clear that he wasn't Satoshi. And that led me eventually to, interview Calvin Ayre, who I also was like, Craig Wright would not have lasted nearly as long as he did without the backing of Calvin Ayre. So I wanted to understand, like, how could Calvin Ayre keep backing this guy? Like, does he really believe it? And I was convinced when I interviewed Calvin Ayre that Calvin Ayre still, he drank the Kool-Aid. Like, he still believed it. All evidence to the contrary.
Well, he spent so much money
Terrific.
on the belief that he is Satoshi that it would be very difficult to go back on that, because so much is on the line financially. So
yeah,
I can understand that.
In the book, sunk cost.
There was a bit of, you went through a period of madness. Can you tell me a bit about that and what was going through your mind?
To be fair, I don't think that the book actually says that. It was more my interpretation when I was
okay.
I was reading Ben going back and forth between the names. And I was like, he's losing his mind very slowly.
To your point, look, I had these sort of, as you might, it's sort of, I think happens with these types of reportorial quests. Like, my wife was definitely giving me like the arched eyebrow occasionally. And like, my laptop would be whirring and overheating because I was scraping all this stuff off the web, and she'd be like, how's your Bitcoin mining going? And, told my daughter, I said, like, I described something as suboptimal, and my young daughter was like, "What does suboptimal mean?" And my wife was like, "Nerd language," you know. So I mean, she was sort of like aware of me as being a little bit down the rabbit hole. And the one way in which, I mean, other than just the mere fact of my obsession being a little crazy, I mean, the one way in which I did sort of internalize some element of the madness is I did internalize some of the paranoia of it all. Like during the period when I became convinced that it was James Donald, I mean, there were a few days when I was really like, oh my God, I figured it out. Like, I figured it out. Why hasn't anybody else figured this out? Maybe they have. Like, this guy is dangerous. And I put my Apple phone on lockdown mode, and I had an old paper shredder I hadn't used in a while that I wheeled out and started using again. And so I will cop to sort of mild temporary madness at some point.
I think that's what makes it's one of the things that makes it fun, because like you also have that moment where you're interviewing the Craig Wright supporters, and you're like, they're really convinced, and then you're like, am I like this? And it's pretty great, because like you get those moments, but at the same time you manage to sort of bring back some kind of balance and take a step back. And again, that's one of the things that makes the investigation very thoughtful. And I think this is my last question, but like, do you have any plans to investigate other aspects of crypto, or was that sort of the big one, and you're off to a different kind of mystery next time?
I think the latter, because the reason I wrote the book was because I did think that like the Satoshi mystery is the one part of Bitcoin that is just of universal interest, because it's just a great mystery, right? And I thought pairing that with sort of the substance of crypto and Bitcoin would be a great way to write a sort of a normie facing book that through which like anyone could, that sort of, your person at the Thanksgiving dinner table is like, what is crypto? You could actually be like, this is a, interesting way to learn about it. But I've always been a generalist. I mean, I wrote another book about like rare, a mystery in the world of rare wine. So it is most likely, I don't see another mystery that is quite as profoundly obsession worthy as the Satoshi mystery in the realm of crypto.
What's been the reception of the book so far?
Well, so one of the things I was trying to do that I actually feel like, I mean, it's my book, so I take this with a grain of salt, but I think I succeeded, is like, I wanted to write a book that was this book that sort of was, a Trojan horse for sort of normies, where come for the story, stay for the learning. But I also wanted the book to be credible to crypto people. And so one of the ways in which I think it is credible, or so far, I've not gotten like any sort of the Bitcoin backlash that I thought I might get. But I think one reason is I was determined not to fall prey to like confirmation bias, right? And it doesn't mean that there weren't moments when I did fall prey to it, but I always tried to falsify my candidates. And so I did not, so as a result, it's not a book that says like it's Peter Todd, and then like I'm sitting there having to defend all the reasons why it probably isn't Peter Todd, and I didn't say, I'm gonna put a target on the back of some random guy in Temple City, California, who lives with his mother and like had to turn off his internet because he's broke and has nothing to do with crypto or doesn't have anything to do with crypto, and just happens to have the name Satoshi, like middle name Satoshi, so I was going to avoid all of those traps. But I also, wanted to interview as many of the core players as I could. So to answer your question, I've received some very gratifying emails from some people who are not like Bitcoin maxi type people, but more like serious computer scientists who liked the book. And I've, I mean, it's kind of early to know what the reception is. I mean, I got some nice reviews. I got some not nice reviews. TBD.
I am curious. Did you ever hear from Hal Finney's widow, and have any clues on that?
I hired a fact checker when I was working on the book, and she spoke to the fact checker, and because I had interviewed Hal Finney by email back in 2011 when he was using an eye tracker to communicate. And then I tried to interview her for the book, and I didn't hear back from her. But then during fact checking, she did engage, and she, went through the fact checking process. And then prior to the book coming out, I sent her a copy of the book, but I have not heard from her.
All right. Well, I feel that. Do you think we'll ever know who Satoshi Nakamoto is?
I kind of do, but I don't know when or how or why. I mean, if it's a intelligence agency, it will eventually be declassified, or there will be another Edward Snowden. If it is a group, then I think at some point, some child or grandchild will come upon a dusty, laptop with like some contemporaneous emails that point the way. Maybe AI will yield some results that pre-AI we have not been able to get. And maybe quantum computing will yield some insights when SHA-256 and, RIPE MD 160 or whichever it is get broken. Maybe that will yield some new clues. And I don't know. It just, it seems impossible to me that even if Satoshi died or dies with the secret intact, that there isn't someone or wasn't someone around Satoshi who at a minimum would say, I have to come forward after all these years that during that, 1.5 year period, like he was on his computer these hours. I mean, there will be something more will come out, because how could it not? Right. Do you guys agree?
I love a good Satoshi whodunit theory story. I love it personally, and often you do learn more about the history of Bitcoin in the process, so that's always rewarding in itself. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. Always,
Christine, Tom, thanks so much.
These theories. All right,
this was fun.
Thank you, Ben. Really a pleasure to meet you and to chat with you and get your insights.
To meet you.